How many of you are worried about your DNA data being sold to the highest bidder? I went ahead and did a deep dive for 23andMe astrologically to see if we should really worry about what's going to happen with this company. 23andMe doesn't have a set founding date, it just says April 2006. So this is a chart for the beginning of the month, and this is a chart for the end of the month. A few planets move from the beginning to the end, but we'll just go ahead and stick with the middle of the month as the birth date for this company. To understand what could actually happen now astrologically with this company, we have to go all the way back to October of 2023. Again, there's no set date for when this happened, but apparently in October of last year, 23andMe had a huge data breach where millions of people's information and data was just leaked. Apparently the company tried to keep this in the down low because it didn't really tell anybody until December. That's like 3 months after it happened. They did end up getting sued because apparently it was a bunch of people, like millions of users. So again, since we don't have a set date that this happened in October, I went ahead and picked the middle of October to give us a middle ground of when this could have happened. Now this is when it starts to get interesting. Apparently October 14th of 2024 was the first eclipse in Libra. What I mean by first eclipse in Libra is the first eclipse in Libra in the South Node in 18 years. If you're unfamiliar with eclipse cycles, the nodes don't return to the same spot and sign until 18 years. Now, as you can see highlighted here, this is the first time the 23andMe is having a nodal return. This is huge because eclipse cycles always mark things in life that are going to be sped up, either by being crumbled and destroyed because they're not part of your path, or they're going to be accelerated because you are on the right path. To me, here shows that 23andMe was already having a little bit of problems in the background, and the breach was a huge, just showing to the public that there is no real protection for the people and for our information out there. So this was kind of like a first red flag, astrologically speaking. Now, I believe that the South Node in Libra for them is more important than their North Node when it comes to the business's image and how they present to the public. This is because we did have the first Aries eclipse back in April 20, 2023, but nothing really happened, at least nothing that I've heard. It hasn't been released to the news. So I think that the South Node in Libra in general, is very important to the storyline. Now, we didn't really hear much after that for the company until recently, September 18, 2024. Every single member of the board resigned from 23andMe. Now that's huge news. Sometimes you hear about a singular person doing this, but apparently it was 7 of the board members that stepped down simultaneously. Naturally, if we look at September 18th, 2024. And now what did you see? Another major eclipse point being hit in the chart. Now this was technically the first eclipse in Pisces for the next cycle, but when you look at the chart, the nodes hit themselves very, very closely. It's almost like they are exactly conjunct in the sky. This still counts when you're reading a chart because it's hitting exactly where the birth chart has that placement. And if you remember going back to how important Libra was in the chart, then we have to look at what Venus is doing for it to all make sense, since Venus rules Libra. Now there's a high probability that the company has Venus in Pisces since it was there for the majority of the month. So if we look at the chart, I circled it here. One of the most important things that's hitting the chart is Saturn. Saturn talks about restrictions, about saying no, about blocking things, not letting things through that are not supposed to happen. But it's also about authority and those that are above you in power and those that have high controlling seats at the table. The fact that Saturn is transiting over their Venus in Pisces just shows to me how on point astrology is. Saturn is applying pressure to the company, and I guess they weren't able to deliver, hence why the board of directors all left. To me, this is just another indicator of how important Venus is in their chart, hence why the South Node in Libra is very important for their timeline. Not to mention there is a high probability that they have their Mars return at the moment, which would indicate all the severing of ties with things or people that are not aligning with your highest goals. Which brings us to present day, what's going on with 23andMe. Between September 18th to now, a lot of people were worried about 23andMe selling the data to the highest bidder since the company did decide to go private. But as of yesterday, CEO apparently said that they are no longer taking any offers to sell to third parties. It's very interesting that she decided to go into a more private manner. It's almost like there's some kind of pressure restriction to keep everything contained and not available to the public. Which brings me to our last chart of the series. October 2nd is going to be the last eclipse that we have in Libra in the South Node until 18 years from now. The South Node is generally just about letting go. Libra is a sign of relationships and just other people. Remember how we said Libra was a very important point in their chart? Having this last eclipse in Libra, I guarantee you there's going to be some big news story that's going to break out, or we're just going to settle in with what we heard in September 30th. With her taking the company private, she might just let it stay there, and she might just be the one that takes over it. We still have Saturn putting a lot of pressure onto Venus, the ruler of the Libra house. So there's still this pressure to just contain what's going on and just not making any rash decisions. Saturn's about taking things very slow and figuring out what it is that we should act on or not act on. We can even look at it a step further and look at Jupiter since it rules Pisces. Jupiter's not doing so hot in Gemini. It's information overload and it's very hard to contain that type of information. There's just too much going on. I'm sure there's more information that the press hasn't released about the company, and I think the CEO is just trying to contain the energy and just it's not wise for her to sell the company anytime soon just because there's a lot of information, a lot of moving pieces that she needs to kind of put together before she makes some kind of big change like that. Even though it is eclipse season, I think she just might make the decision to shut down the company completely or maybe just rebrand and keep that information locked up away. I'm not really sure how the ethics of the DNA stuff work here, but if she is just taking sole ownership of the company, then I don't think she's going to sell the company anytime soon, especially with Saturn being there. Saturn's a very slow moving planet, and there's just too much pressure to contain the mess that happened in the last eclipse. And even looking at transiting Venus, it's in Scorpio right now. It's actually hitting their natal Jupiter. So again, it's kind of the same players that are working with the cycle. If we look at the ruler of that house, that would be Mars. And again, Mars seems to be making a comeback to their chart in Mars return. Mars is about severing things, cutting things off, and just protecting. Since it's in Cancer, it's more about protecting the things that we love, things that are dear to us. So, her company, her baby, she's trying to make sure that she does what's best for the company. It's the last eclipse in Libra, so in my opinion, one or two things might happen. She might just close out the company completely and make it the last, ending for that cycle. Or she might just shut down, rebrand, and start something new with the company, but we won't see that happen for a while. Maybe next eclipse cycle in 18 years. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen, especially if you're into astrology. Like, what do you think the cycle means? What do you think the eclipse in October 2nd is going to bring for them? I'm genuinely curious what this is going to do for the company. I honestly think it might shut it down, but hey, maybe it's for the best for our protection.